Welcome to Skyline. Our top story tonight. Sorry. Why? It's not even noon. Our top story this morning. She has touched the lives of millions of Americans with her thought-provoking stories on gender, sexuality, and personal identity. She is a voice for all women in the theater and has a Pulitzer Prize underneath her belt. This morning, we take a look at the playwright, the professor, the person, Paula Vogel.
Paula Vogel was born on November 16, 1951. Her father was an advertising executive, and her mother was a secretary for the U.S. Postal Service. In 1974, she graduated from the Catholic University of America with her B.A., and in 1976, she got her master's at Cornell University. In 2004, she married her longtime partner, Anne Fausto Sterling. She made her debut as a playwright in 1974 with Swan Song of Sir Henry, and since then she's gone on to write over a dozen more plays, many of which tackle controversial subjects such as sexual abuse.
Paula Vogel's plays are produced in theaters all across the country, like this one behind me. However, it hasn't always been that easy. Some of her plays have pushed the envelope so much that some wouldn't dare to produce them.
I didn't even get to the point where I thought there were going to be pickets. I thought, it's fine to write this play because no one will produce it. And I just had to take the journey for myself. I never expected it to be produced. I never expected it to go as far as it did. And it's one of those challenges, you know, that I just thought, I wonder if a woman writer could do this.
And do this she did. In 1997, Vogel wrote her magnum opus, the Pulitzer Prize-winning How I Learned to Drive, a tale of a young lady named Littlebit and her uncle giving her driving lessons. He molests her at age 11, and over the course of the play makes more sexual advances towards her.
For the lessons in How I Learned to Drive, where did you get the metaphor for driving?
This may sound very strange, or it's just the way at some point I think as playwrights we're trained to think. I saw the image.
Yeah.
I saw the character, Littlebit.
Yeah.
You know, I had an image in my head. The original Littlebit in my head was driving in the car and adjusted the rear view mirror and saw her uncle in the back, and I went, that's it. Wow. That's the metaphor. And then, of course, thinking about it, we reach an age, not quite of sexual maturity, but sexual initiation at the same time that we're learning to drive. So I didn't quite think about how, as an image or a metaphor, driving would connect or resonate with so many people.
But despite the success of How I Learned to Drive, Vogel's favorite piece of work is the 1992 play Baltimore Waltz.
What are your personal feelings on Baltimore Waltz?
It will be the greatest thing I ever write. I will be proudest of that play. I think it broke more ground for me. I think it was an absolutely true expression of my emotion in a given point in time. And I can't say that I don't enjoy How I Learned to Drive, but when I know that Baltimore Waltz is playing, there's more of a feeling of joy. And I had never at that point tried anything that was that immediate to me. That was the first time that I've ever tried really to look at theater as a pure expression of emotion. And it was that play. So when I talk to people about my experience in the theater, I said about Baltimore Waltz that if a bus hit me the next day in the street, I'd die a happy woman because I finally stood in the theater and was happy in the room.
Baltimore Waltz was written in the wake of her brother Carl succumbing to HIV at the age of 37. She remembers him fondly.
He was influential in dragging me into education, saying, you know what, and we can both go to college. I didn't think that was possible. In a strange way, he was influential in me taking the road into theater rather than becoming a fiction writer or becoming a poet, because he was supposed to become the poet, the fiction writer in the family. And I thought, well, theater's not really about writing, and so I took that road instead.
And what a road she has paved. Paula Vogel is a celebrated spokeswoman for feminist theater, considering herself a First Amendment feminist.
I take what I do as a playwright actually very seriously. I'm always looking over my shoulder and saying, what should we do? And to me, what playwrights need to do is go back and look at what the Greeks did. One could not be a Greek playwright and write a tragedy without writing a satirical comedy on the same subject. So I took it quite seriously, and I thought, if I'm going to write How I Learned to Drive, I need to do the burlesque version, which is exactly what the Greek dramatist did. I mean, that may sound a little bit more pretentious than I mean it to, but there's a sense that I have in terms of drama about having sat for 20 years, 30 years in audiences and enjoying things like Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, really enjoying it, loving it, but then wondering, would it be funny if a woman told the jokes?
Now, when somebody puts on your plays, does the artistic director always have to be a woman?
Where one identifies in terms of supporting and producing women does not necessarily align with gender. There are male artistic directors all around the country who are feminist, who are supportive, who are daring. And there are women artistic directors around the country who are not supportive and daring in terms of gender.
Male or female, nobody can deny the impact that Paula Vogel has made in the world of theater. She is currently the chair of the playwriting department at the Yale School of Drama, and in 2012 was recognized for her efforts as she was inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame. Paula Vogel, playwright, professor, partner, person.
Paula Vogel's latest production, Don Juan Comes Home from Iraq, opened up this past April. Coming up, the Great Lakes 1 student will go for a presentation. We talk with the young man who made a fake news broadcast just to get an A on his assignment. More on that when we return. Is it true that I am the most dashing interviewer you've ever had the pleasure to work with?
Probably